2022 was a bumper year for Turkey's defense industry. Export targets were exceeded, new markets opened. Now expectations have been set high for 2023 with a goal of $6 billion in exports. This year will also see testing of the country's newest homegrown defense technology, everything from unmanned aircraft to amphibious assault ships and satellites. Several combat aircraft and UAVs are scheduled to make their maiden flights, including the latest Bayraktar TB3 drones. The UAVs will be deployed on Turkiye's future flagship, the TCG Anadolu, which is scheduled to be deployed this year. Ismail Demir, the head of the Presidency of Defence Industries, which oversees the country's defence production, said that nearly 2,000 companies are operating in the sector and will be the driving force in creating more indigenous technology. So how will 2023 turn out for Turkish defense companies, and what new markets is the country looking to tap? And for more on what the new year could bring for Turkey's defense industry, I'm joined by Halil Dewan. He is a drone researcher and defense analyst based in London, and Giray Sadık is the director of the European Studies Research Center at Ankara Yıldırım Beyazıt University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Giray, let me begin with you. How has Turkey's defense sector evolved in the past 2 decades, and how has it become, in a way, transformed itself from an arms importer to a major exporter and innovator?
The defense developments of Turkey were primarily related to meet domestic demand as a result of restrictions from Turkey's arms suppliers on critical technologies such as air defense systems, fighter jets, and so on, all essential for the defense of Turkey. And therefore, last 2 decades, Turkey transformed itself from a major arms importer to a trendsetter with a growing trend of arms manufacturing indigenously for domestic security needs, but also increasingly for exports to allies and partners. And this trend is likely to grow also according to the recent estimates of the Presidency of Defence Industries.
So, Halil, the industry has set a $6 billion export target for this year. Is this viable, and what does that amount tell us about the shape of the Turkish defence industry?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do think it's highly viable based on the markets that Turkey's defense industry has focused on. You know, we've had quite a lot of military technology coming out of Turkey in a very short amount of time. But of course, the development stage was quite long, which shows you the determination. And it's something we should focus on as well in this show. But we've had, for example, the TB2, the Akinci, we've had the Kizil Elma, which is the red apple. And also very much important is the DIHA, which is the vertical takeoff ISR mission drone, which is very inexpensive. And I think generally speaking, we need to look into why Turkey is also becoming a defense, rising power, particularly focused on the UAV industry. Apart from the regional threats that Turkey has, it's also utilized it as a diplomatic tool. As a strategy to gain relationships in places that perhaps it didn't, and it's also has provided other states to communicate with Turkey. So recently, I think 2 years ago, we've had the British Defence Minister remark that Turkey's defence industry with its UAVs is a game changer. And he particularly applauded the Ottoman engineering innovation. And, you know, if we look at the red apple in particular, which is the UAV fighter jet, and the reason why this came into play is specifically because of the United States preventing Turkey from its F-16 upgrade, and also its, the need for it to acquire the F-35. And then there was also tensions with regards to the S-400 acquisition from Russia, and there's a lot of conversation about that, of course. So as a result of that, even if you look at the commentary from the CEO of Bayraktar Technologies, only a couple of days ago, he said on stage, you know, the reason for our innovation is because we want air supremacy and air superiority. And that's really the key to Turkey's defense at the moment.
So speaking of a diplomatic tool, Giray, as Halil mentioned, how have drone sales improved Turkey's relations with Turkic states like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and established new ones with Saudi Arabia, Poland, Tunisia, and etc.? What are your thoughts on that?
That is clearly a growing trend. Even speaking about being a trendsetter, now we talk about drone diplomacy, for example. It was very timely coined, that term, but we need to consider the whole defense ecosystem behind that when Turkey's cooperation and experts to defense industry, all the way from sub-Saharan Africa to Central Asia, to NATO allies like Poland and Romania, to Saudi Arabia in the Gulf. And that growing defense industry footprint is unprecedented, and it is likely to continue even further. It is not only that Turkish products are more affordable, but at the heart of that, it is Turkey offers that high technology with affordable prices and being a reliable partner. And that brings Turkish diplomacy at the forefront, if you wish, putting a teeth into that diplomacy, that not only the partners of Turkey see additional leverage of cooperating with Turkey's regional efforts, but also that brings Turkey to be more seriously considered as a regional power in its all those regional initiatives, and therefore using its new edge with defense industry to further contribute to regional stability.
So, Halil, as Giray mentioned, Turkey has also been exporting arms to African nations. Why have African nations become interested in buying Turkish arms? Is it because they are cheaper? And what kind of a policy does Turkey follow when it comes to the combination of security and economics? I mean, do they reinforce each other?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, what we've seen here is global South countries looking at Turkey's defense emancipation, but also development in a very short time. Also, the elite in Turkey are very good at PRing all of their weapon systems, and they've also have effectively been utilized in recent conflicts, as we've seen in the last 2 years. So as a result of that, we see that the global South countries are reaching out to Turkey and saying, can we purchase some? Because we effectively need this confidence, we need this weapon systems. And on the market, for example, the US MQ-9 drone, for instance, isn't really up for sale. You know, there's been a lot of to and fro competition between Gulf states to purchase them. We've also had a lot of game competition and war gaming around MQ-9 drones. But the real question and what we should be focusing on is, what does it mean when Turkish drones are in the east, in the west, in the north? And what does that mean for the global north states? Well, the reality is, when we talk about drone warfare, we're talking about satellite communication systems, we're talking about signal intelligence, and we also need to consider about what this means in terms of control. What does this mean in terms of influence militarily, war gaming, strategy, communications, and building alliances are in and around that? Because some of the elites with the drone industry for instance, the US and UK, more broadly in Europe, they actually have an ecosystem, as mentioned by your guest, where they share intelligence.
Yes.
That, I'm pretty sure, does not happen with Turkey, apart from some minute operations in Syria, which is very, very strenuously controlled. But on a global context, what does it mean in terms of defense pacts with other countries who are purchasing with Turkey? What does this mean moving forward to modern warfare 3.0, which is very much from space down?
So, Giray, is the Turkish defense industry only limited to drones or unmanned aerial vehicles? I mean, how diversified is the industry right now?
I think that's an important question. Drones may be viewed as a tip of the iceberg. We can talk about entire defense ecosystem, from the software of that to satellite communications, to its munitions, guided missiles, and so on. That defense ecosystem harbors about 2,000 companies, as recently the head of Presidency of Defence Industry, Turkish Defence Industries, Ismail Demir, noted, and more than 750 projects So the drones are not only about themselves to begin with, and also in terms of their military, economic, and political repercussions, they are unlikely to stay there, from the production to the experts to diplomacy and to entire defense ecosystem that enables them with all those critical technologies to deliver on the battlefield. And here, Turkish ecosystem is proven not only internationally in conflict zones such as Azerbaijan and Libya, but also domestically, Turkey using them for border security, counter-terrorism, and related issues. And here I'd like to add unmanned systems, actually. Turkey recently uses unmanned ground vehicles such as Barkan, or unmanned systems for maritime surveillance such as ULAK, others. So it's a whole family of unmanned systems where drones are at the top and more visible and at the forefront, to be frank, with Kızıl Elma and Bayraktar. But clearly, the portfolio is broader than that.
Yeah, so Hani, you talked about the lack of intelligence sharing when it comes to Turkey. How is Turkey's flexibility in technology transfers making it a more reliable partner, maybe when compared to other traditional exporters? I mean, is it pursuing the democratization of technology transfer at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. That's a very good question. And really and truly, what it boils down to is the global orders and the violence we see today. And I think Turkey have made a very strategic decision to compete in that. Whilst there is like an offshoot remark with regards to its drone diplomacy, it's also about the territorial integrity of the country, which every state on the face of the earth has the right to defend themselves. But we see from China, for instance, its growing network-centric warfare capabilities, which the global north, in particular the US and the UK and Europe at large, have developed for over nearly 40 years now. Since 1920s, this strategy has actually started. So I think Turkey now is immediately responding to that within its positionality of where it is, in the global order. And it's effectively playing smart by selling some of its weapon systems around the world, which, of course, what many people don't know is that they have control over these drones.
Yes.
There's reach back and there's communication satellite system, which comes back to the American version of the distributed common ground system, which is actually produced by Bayraktar as well as some other companies within Turkey. And there is a real push now within Turkey, from what I can see, to make this all indigenous. There is still some parts coming from Europe and other countries. They really want to make this more independent, which is actually, very much an American strategy to have everything in-house. And I do think that this is a race for intelligence, surveillance, and also to effectively have greater situational awareness on the battlefield, but not just that, around the world as well. And that's the quandary which is posing questions to international relations, war studies, but also the legal arena in terms of the law of armed conflict and international law.
Yes.
How do you assess these things?
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.